About 168 million children worldwide are involved in child labor. Many of them work long hours in dangerous conditions. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, Liberia is one of 4 countries in the world that use child labor in rubber industry. It's that country's largest exporter and largest employer. Children on these rubber plantations are often forced to cut trees with sharp tools, handle pesticides, and haul heavy buckets of liquid latex. It's considered one of the worst forms of child labor and denies children the right to a basic education. Now, a U.S. government-funded project is working to remove Liberia's children from hazardous work. Well, here to tell us more is Martha Saldinger from Windrock International. It's a U.S.-based global nonprofit with a strong focus on agriculture. Welcome to our program today.
Thank you so much.
Now, first, we want to ask you how we got to where we are today, where children are working in this kind of conditions, and what kind of work you are aware that they do.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great question. You know, poverty drives a lot of decisions in marginalized households across the world, and Liberia in particular is still struggling to come out of the legacy of the Civil War. And then you couple that with the ravages of the Ebola epidemic, which set back the country economically and socially, and of course health. So rural families in particular look at their entire labor pool, and children are a part of the workforce. And of course, that's fine for children to do certain tasks, but there are tasks that are dangerous and
really
exploitative.
Dangerous. And I know that your organization works hard to try and implement this program to remove children from this kind of terrible conditions. How do you do it?
Well, the Actions to Reduce Child Labor program in Liberia, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, works on multiple levels. First of all, we aim to mobilize communities to raise awareness about what the hazards are. 85 million children of the 168 million that are working in child labor are in hazardous child labor. So those are the children who are really at high risk. We work by getting children into school and by offering families alternative livelihoods that are very supportive of their household needs. So instead of being right on the margins, gives people a chance to earn better.
We know that in some of these areas, perhaps this is the only way that some of the families can survive. Are there certain types of work that can be considered okay for children to perform? Because not every type of work is illegal, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, growing up learning how to do things is a part of what we do as we go through childhood and adolescence. So not all work is hazardous or illegal, but what deprives children of their education, what harms them morally or socially, those are the things we consider to be hazardous.
Well, now we know that the U.S. is cutting back on its budget, supporting especially those kind of programs. How do you make the case that the U.S. taxpayers' money should be used to invest in such kind of programs in Africa, faraway land?
Great question. For me, it's sort of a twofold answer. I see on the one hand, the economic drivers. We are in a global economy, and what we buy comes from many places around the world. And frankly, if we are buying products that are made from cheaper child labor, our own American workforce is being undermined. There's a moral dimension too. I cannot divorce the morality from the question. And children have a right to an education to grow up healthy and not to be compromised.
Now,
so I think
the World Day Against Child Labor is coming up this month.
It is.
Question is, you mentioned something about awareness. Where do you want to create or raise this awareness more? Is it in Africa itself, or perhaps this should be done worldwide, outside of the continent?
Well, we have a lot of work to do in Africa, but it's beyond Africa. Child labor occurs around the world, and we want to be raising awareness in the United States. And in fact, the Department of Labor has recommended that we look up on their Sweat and Toil app, you can find out where your products are made. So we can raise our own awareness as well as in the world at large, and start in our own communities.
Yeah. And it is many products. I mean, I drive a car, we drive, and so what to think about who is working on this kind of farms that produce these things, right?
So
think about our children. Eh?
Rubber is one of the major crops in Liberia. It's very important to the economy, and we all use rubber products wherever we live in the world. So partly we need to work with industry, and Winrock does that very successfully, partnering with industry to eradicate child labor from supply chains. But it's a community, industry, government partnership.
Everybody, and to help those parents who think this is the only way their children can help them
Absolutely.
to kind of change their mindset and do something different. Thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Thank you too.
For the sake of all the children of the world and those of Liberia.